Prophesized by dragons, tempered by magic, forged in war. Those were the phrases used to describe the world of Eberron. The setting combined medieval fantasy with dark adventure on a world where magic was used and abused for every convenience. Steampunk meets lazy, crazy wizards. Magic is part of the landscape, society, and industry. If you could dream it up and come up with the gold, some spell slinger would make it happen. Arcane analog railroads and skyships to even a magical telegraph. The continent of Corvair contains skyscraper castles and the House of Cannith. And during the desperate final days of the last war, they released their mightiest creation. Let's go! Shortly before the day of mourning, House Cannith unleashed its mightiest creation, the Warforged Colossus. Hundreds of feet tall, these gargantuan warriors thundered across Sayer, crushing everything in their path and leaving ruin in their wake. Meant to end the war decisively, these arcane war machines could pulverize soldiers beneath their feet and incinerate entire legions with a beam of red light radiating from their mouths. But as the Colossus were beginning to turn to the lands outside of Sayer, the morning came, and the Colossus perished. The morning, okay, so the morning ended the war. No one knows if the catastrophe was caused by a weapon from an enemy nation or a doomsday device or Sayer's own design. The cataclysm may have been deliberate, it may have been an accident. In the end, the result was the same. Beautiful Sayer, jewel of Galifar's vast holdings, exploded in a blast of arcane power the likes of which hadn't been seen since the ruin of Zendrix 40,000 years before. On the day of mourning, Sayer disappeared. Now the region that once was Sayer goes by the Mournland. There are remains of Colossus scattered all over the Mournland, filled with secrets and waiting to be explored. House Cannith had spent much of the war working on various kinds of constructs that could serve as soldiers, siege engines, and other weapons of war. The Warforged Titans were developed over the next 20 years, and the modern Warforged, often perceived as the pinnacle of Cannith engineering. They first saw battle in 965. Successful as the Warforged were, House Cannith never lost interest in building a better Titan. Sayer couldn't lose its desire for deadly weapons that could give it an edge over its enemies, and tremendous amounts of gold flowed into Sayer's coffers into the vaults of the House Cannith. And research and development continued, working towards a new kind of Warforged that would bring an end to the war once and for all, and establish Sayer's martial supremacy for the centuries to come. With Sayer's immense wealth fueling its effort, House Cannith called upon the ingenuity of its best artificers. Construction began on enormous new creations, foundries, hundreds of feet tall, carved into the sides of mountains or secretly nestled within remote canyons. That's innovative. The project succeeded beyond Sayer's wildest dreams. When the original Warforged Colossus took its first thunderous footsteps, it was met with reactions of equal parts awe and horror. Now, operating a Colossus, part Warforged and part vehicle. It stands about 200 to 300 feet tall. Before we discuss the operation of this walking fortress, we have to go into Dragonmarks. Now, a Dragonmark appears on the skin. There are 12 known Dragonmarks in Eberron, and each has a unique design and power. In the Eberron setting, they are bound to certain bloodlines, and when you choose a mark for your character, it implies your association with that particular house. This doesn't necessarily mean you're even aware of the house's existence. Your ancestors could have been separated from that house ages ago. You could have denounced or been excommunicadoed from that house, or just decided a mutual understanding of bugger off. You could also have been trained by that house and managed to keep your independence. And of course, you could be a dedicated agent of that particular house. Now, the Dragonmark itself can be anywhere on the body, and when used, it will grow warm to the touch and sometimes even glow. Put this up with many other lines I've never thought I'd be writing or speaking. If the mark is on a limb and that limb is severed, the mark will manifest itself on a different part of the body. Ouch. This also reminds me of the setting in the Dragon Blood series by Lindsay Brokaw, which was kind of steampunk and different marks and magical items. All right, so how does this pertain to our Colossus? Well, according to some of the source material, for optimal performance, a Colossus required an active crew. Makes sense. Including a captain, not Kirk. but the captain would have to have the mark of making. This mark is from the House Cannith, who created the Warforged. Makes sense. As quoted by Baron Merix de Cannith, "My house built the modern world. The mark of making guides the bearer through an act of creation." A bit of a god complex. The bearer can also mend broken things with a touch. They will also have a minor magic item on them that they are currently working on. A bit of a tinkerer. There will also be a weapons officer with the Mark of the Storm. This mark is from House Landra. The bearer call upon the power of the storm. The Oath of Landra says, "Sovereigns and firstborn, grant me the 4 blessings promised to our people. Dominion over the air, dominion over the water, fortune for my family, fortune for my future." And then finally, a helmsman with the Mark of Passage, which is from the House Orion. Orion? I'm going to go with Orion. It allows its bearer to move with uncanny speed and can even slip through space in the blink of an eye. When absolutely necessary, though, the Colossus could direct itself, but at diminished power.
Colossus also carried a sizable contingent of elite troops. They could ride in safety within the Colossus while it crushed through enemy lines. Then they'd pour out through hatches once the Colossus was in position.
That would be in the style of the Greeks gaining entrance to Troy, a la the Trojan horse.
This brings us to the docent network. So controlling a construct of such size proved to be a great challenge for the Cannith artificers. The solution entailed creating a large number of docent nodes and joining them together in a single network distributed throughout the body of the Colossus. This kind of reminds me of Ghostbusters 2 and them getting the Statue of Liberty to come to life. Docent nodes are modeled after the ancient docents found in Zendrik. And though they lack the full sentience and functionality of a true docent, collectively they can guide and control a Colossus. This may lead you to the obvious question, what is a docent? A docent is a small metal sphere approximately 2 inches studded with gems or dragon shards. Explorers have found them in Zendrik. Despite a strong magical aura, they possess no apparent abilities until they are attached to a Warforged. They are designed to assist and guide the Warforged. Now, the docents in a Colossus are a network and converge at one place. That's where the captain could stand and control the Colossus's every movement. And he would use a mithril helmet with hundreds of semi-organic tendril wires attached. And by way of central master docent, a true docent recovered from Zendrix, the whole network fed information back to the operator. Now, there were several smaller hubs of the network gave other operators access to relevant parts, and it enabled them to control those parts. The techniques and tools used to create docent nodes were lost in the morning. The various branches of House Cannith are sending adventurers into the Mournland in hopes of salvaging some or all of the network inside a fallen Colossus. This is also a great adventure hook or a side quest for your party. The power source of a Colossus is a Kyber Dragonshard of unusually large size, cut into a specific pattern that allows the Dragonshard to contain raw magical energy without exploding, because that would be bad. A single power core is about the size of a wine barrel, hooked up to an elaborate harness that distributes power throughout the Colossus. What are Dragonshards? Well, here we go. Ancient legends and creation myths describe Eberron as a world in 3 parts. The ring above, the subterranean realm below, and the land between. Each of these world sections is tied to a great dragon of legend, Cybears, Kyber, and Eberron. Each section of the world produces stones and crystals imbued with arcane power, Dragonshards. With Dragonshards, Dragonmarks can be made more powerful, elementals can be controlled and harnessed, and magic items of all sorts can be crafted and shaped. These shards, however, are rare and difficult to come by, making them expensive and often the goals of great quests and adventures. The Warforged Colossus were physically powerful, but their principal weaponry involved the use of bound elementals. Now, some of the Warforged Colossus expelled blasts of elemental fire from their hands or mouths, while others wielded swords like Voltron, more or less. And some Colossus also used bound elementals for defense, manifesting shields of elemental rock, or blasting out air elementals to deflect range attacks, and so on. Now, the captain of the Colossus could control all this weaponry through a docent network. But for optimal performance, the captain relied on a weapons officer with the Mark of the Storm to employ this elemental weaponry. When adventurers discover a Colossus, It might be in any state. Some have fallen or collapsed and become overgrown with vegetation to the point where it could be mistaken for part of a hill or part of a mountain. One was engulfed when the rock under its feet turned to liquid and it was swallowed up, encasing it in a stone prison when the rock hardened. Some are buried except for the head, perhaps her hand, which serves as a clear indicator that something lies underneath. Adventurers might even stumble upon a reality the world isn't ready to face, an operational Colossus. Or dare I say, a sentient Colossus. All right, now entering the Colossus, its mostly hollow interior is large enough for the crew and soldiers to travel in safety. There's areas with tunnels, ladders, hallways, crawlways, control rooms, storage rooms, secret rooms, turrets, and observation decks. With comfort as a low priority, only minimal crew are provided, and the inside has no kitchen or dining areas. Normal operating procedure called for the crew to exit the Colossus at night and camp outside it. A Colossus usually has multiple hatches to allow entrance and egress on the legs, on the back, in the chest, in the mouth, on the back of the head, and so on. But by entering the remains of a Warforged Colossus, it's not a task to be taken lightly. Since the Mournland can have bizarre effects on the Colossus docent network, power core, and weaponry, as well as its mind, the elemental life within could be going berserk. And even though a Colossus has fallen, its docent nodes and its elemental defenses might still be active. The Dragonshards that once bound the elemental that powered the Colossus' main weaponry might have been broken, allowing the elemental to escape from its bondage and roam the body of the Colossus, which now is its lair. Or perhaps it has come under the control of a master docent and now does its twisted will. Think AI gone completely wrong. Now, a dungeon crawl through a fallen Colossus could be as deadly as Tomb of Horrors, and this is why. House Cannith's artisans line the interior of each Colossus with magic wards and traps in case enemy soldiers breached its defenses. And as long as the primary operator remained connected to the master docent and in control, the traps were inactive. But if the operator gave an alert, or simply left their station or died, the master docent would send a signal throughout the network to seal the doors, activate the arcane wards, and arm the traps in any area that was under attack. A fallen Colossus can also be a tomb, filled with the bodies of the crew that perished. Now, the mourning affected everything in bizarre ways, so a venture inside a Colossus is always terrifying. A horrific monster might have made its lair in the Colossus's interior. The master docent in another one might speak through the brass horns that the crew used to communicate, growing ever more sinister. You could have the whole crew become undead zombies lumbering through the Colossus's interior, or you could have it haunted by the spirits of the crew. These gargantuan constructs have an armor class of 23, and it's immune to physical damage from non-magical attacks. Its form can't be magically altered, and it has legendary resistance and magic resistance. It also has the Towering Terror trait. Try saying that 3 times real quick. A reduced radius variation on Frightful Presence that requires no action to invoke, kicking in automatically when an enemy creature approaches to within 30 feet of it, or vice versa. Think metal, wood, and stone the size of Godzilla out to wreak havoc upon the countryside. The Colossus multi-attack includes 1 slam attack. Both Eldritch Turret and Stomp can knock opponents prone, but a slam deals no additional damage as a result. The Colossus' most terrifying weapon, other than its foot about to crush you, would be its incinerating beam. It fires a 150-foot line that is 10 feet wide, requiring a dexterity saving throw of 26. On a failed save, you get 11d10 of damage and half as much on a successful one. This is radiant damage. And any creature reduced to 0 hit points will get the thorough Thanos dusting. This will be disintegrating, leaving behind anything it was wearing or carrying. This presents a high-level character-worthy foe. It can literally take on armies. You can have an army inside that gets released almost, once again, Trojan War style. Or just plain old, here we are. The Warforged Colossus has self-preservation instinct and withdraws when severely damaged. So reduced to around 160, 165 hit points or fewer, dodging as it retreats except when it can torch its foes with its incinerating beam on the way out. It stays in the fight though if a superior intelligence commands it to. Keith Admann's The Monsters Know What They Are Doing series has some great tactics. I'll put a link below. Although it can run without a crew, it is built to carry wizards, artificers, mage rights, and elite troops. This is a troop transport with steel fangs. Largely hollow inside, it has tunnels, ladders, storage areas, secret rooms, and observation decks. It's a walking fortress. Some standing over 300 feet tall, they invoke terror on a whole new level. So many plot hooks, and who doesn't love a giant freaking monster? This would be like Mechagodzilla running with an entire elite force inside, and you would just have the thing go rogue and crush the countryside Tarrasque style. The Eberron setting is fascinating in general. That being said, you could always homebrew up a medieval steampunk fantasy land where stagecoaches fly, ships sail the sea, land, and air by magic, and you could even shoehorn in some sort of Old West railroad. After all, who doesn't love a good train heist? I would homebrew and incorporate some of Lindsay Broker's Dragonblood series to the Eberron setting, her Iskandir and Kofa conflict with dragons, sentient swords, Jaxie, and magically powered flyers is a bit like Tolkien meets Top Gun. You could have Colonel Ridge and Sordo advise the party on the best way to infiltrate the Colossus. You could homebrew in some of the aspects of the amazing world from the Brandon Sanderson Mistborn series, especially the metal magic system. I guess what I'm beating around the bush about is Wizards of the Coast, this message is for you. You do not own Theater of the Mind. Most of us homebrew and bastardize everything that's published. And you are not the first and certainly won't be the last to combine magic and monsters, dragons and dungeons, and steampunk with enchanted sentient robots and swords. Now I know not everyone at WotC is like this, but the few in charge should try picking up a book and reading it instead of just charging us for the ones you publish. But I digress. Thanks for listening to my ranting and presentation. We got a whole contingent of material that has to be edited coming down the line, including some of the cooler homebrew we've done over the past few decades. Might do a deep dive on them Sea Devils next while we finish up the first novel. Please and thank you. Thank you so much. If you can, assault that like and smash that sub. And to Mad Dog and Coco, good luck with that Colossus, buddy. You're gonna need it.